Hey guys, it's Cooley Smiley. Welcome to my channel, especially if you're new. I like to consider myself a horror nerd. I'm a big fan of scary movies, scary video games, all things spooky. So yeah, if you're into that, you might have come to the right place. I'm really excited about today's video. I've had this idea for a while, but I know it's gonna be a long one, so I'm just gonna get into it. Today, we're gonna talk about 6 horror movies that are fun, 6 horror movies that are good for her, and 6 horror movies that actually scared me. You guys get it? 666. Anyway, I consider myself to be pretty well versed in horror film. I also know I'm not an expert, but I've seen a lot of movies. Usually when I ask people to give me suggestions on movies to watch on Netflix and Shudder and Amazon for horror, I almost always have seen the ones that get recommended to me. So today I'm not going to recommend a bunch of movies you probably already heard of. If you're a big horror nerd, you might have heard these too. But for the people who are looking for some movies that aren't necessarily the top rated OG amazing horror films, I have a few for you. So to get today's video started off with, I figured we should start with the 6 horror movies that I thought were fun. By the way, these are not in any particular order, they were just when they came to my brain. 1. Trick or Treat! As you guys might have already seen in my Spirit Halloween haul, I bought this little guy back here. He's from the movie Trick or Treat, and his name is Sam. Trick or Treat recently became like a big cult classic, and it is an OG, but I don't think people started really celebrating that film for what it was until recent years. So while I think a lot of people are going to consider this a classic, I think it's a classic that didn't get love until recently. This movie's super fun because it seems super normal. We're just following a bunch of people on their separate stories, things that happened to them on Halloween, and everything is a little bit more than meets the eye. I would probably rank Trick or Treat 9 out of 10. Our second fun movie is actually a 3-parter that came out recently on Netflix. Fear Street. Y'all, Fear Street, Fear Street, Fear Street, Fear Street. This was a novel originally written by the same person who wrote Goosebumps. They turned it into a 3-part series with a bunch of new actors and actresses and 2 people that were in Stranger Things. And y'all, it just gets better as the parts go on. I was not all that impressed by Fear Street Part 1, but the second one had me dropping my jaw, and the third part was like everything I've wanted in a horror movie in modern days in a really long time. It's just fun. It's enjoyable. It's interesting. There's twists and turns. The acting is great. The soundtrack is great. And the cinematography is great. It's just fun. I really enjoy it. 10 out of 10. Fun movie number 3, The Terrifier. I'm putting this in the fun category because to this day, I don't understand what I watched. This movie, it was on Netflix for a hot minute, which is how I watched it. And the killer, the bad guy, is a clown who doesn't speak. And I thought it was super funny at first, and then it got creepy, and then it got weird. And that's all I feel like I should tell you, because this is one that you just have to watch. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because I don't fully understand what happened in that movie. Storytelling was a little lacking, but it didn't mean it wasn't fun to watch. Fun movie number 4 is actually one of my very first horror movies that I ever watched in my entire life. Dead Silence. Dead Silence was a movie that I sat down and watched with friends. First time I ever decided to watch a horror movie without family in the room or without sneaking down in the basement and watching a movie my brother was watching with his friends. I think Dead by Daylight was ahead of its time, as it is a horror movie about dolls and about a ventriloquist. I think Annabelle has overshadowed and almost ruined the doll horror movie genre. I have never been a fan of the Annabelle movies. I found them boring. I fell asleep during the first one. I don't remember what happened in any of the Conjuring films. I personally found them to be boring and not interesting and not scary. And I'm not one of those people that needs to be scared by a horror movie to enjoy it, because I really do find a lot of joy in the storytelling and the characters and character design and etc. I don't have to be scared to enjoy horror film. There's a lot of people who are like that, and that's not who I am, but I genuinely do not like The Conjuring or the Annabelle movies. Dead by Daylight, to me, took dolls and ran with the creepiness that already comes with them. Written by the same writer as Saw, it's got 90s angst. It's a little over the top at times, but it's got some of the horror movie tropes and characters that are subtle enough, but also not subtle at all, and that's what makes it fun. But to this day, there are still scenes in that movie that I have nightmares about. If you are a fan of Saw and you haven't seen Dead Silence, definitely check it out. I would rank this a 9 out of 10. Fun movie number 5 is The Ritual. Y'all, The Ritual was such an underrated film. I don't know how many people have actually seen it. I'm about 99% sure that this was a Netflix movie, mostly because I watched it on Netflix. I didn't see trailers for it at all. And the main character in this movie was in one of my favorite episodes of Black Mirror. The Ritual, to me, is one of those movies that does something that is so overdone in horror film, but does it differently. You know, it's just a bunch of people going on a hike and they get lost. How many movies in horror have we seen of that? So many. But then it takes a turn that almost feels like Midsummer or like Blair Witch vibes. And there's some interesting takes on what I believe is Scandinavian lore. And I can't explain too much because, once again, one of the best things about this movie is not knowing too much about it. The acting is really great. The cinematography is great. And the horror that you discover along the way fucked me up. 9 out of 10. Go check it out. Last movie of our fun category is Mercy Black. I am going to humble brag on you guys for a minute. I used to nanny, and the little girl I used to nanny is in this film. And it's a wild feeling. But also, for my anime fans out there, the lead actress in this film is the actress that is going to be playing Faye Valentine in the live-action Cowboy Bebop. This movie is actually based off of a true story, something that happened a few years back. 2 young girls went to the forest with a friend, and apparently Slender Man told them to kill their friend. So this movie is based off of that, but I will say this movie's fun because there are some moments in this movie that are a little cliche, but there are also moments in this movie that made me jump across the room. Definitely a fun movie, and because the little girl I used to nanny's in it, I'm gonna have to rank this a 10 out of 10. Ooh, I'm so excited. It's time to move on to our second category. Good for her horror films. If you don't know what a good for her horror film is, a good for her horror film usually ends with the final girl getting what she deserved in that moment, feeling fulfilled in that moment, or getting some sort of revenge in that moment. For me, good for her films are just so empowering because ever since I've been able to watch horror films, women are always written so terribly. Or there's one strong woman. Did you know, hold on, did you know that the reason that Ripley is written so well in Alien is because she was supposed to be played by a man? Horror films have such terrible writing when it comes to women that the one woman that we all look up to in horror films was actually written to be a man. Good for her horror films. They just fulfill me. So I'm going to name 6 of my favorites. Number 1 is a movie that got a lot of slack when it came out due to internalized misogyny, because people didn't fully understand what this movie is supposed to be about. Jennifer's Body. If you don't understand what I'm saying about that, I'm sure you can look up plenty of videos explaining why Jennifer's Body isn't meant for the male's gaze, why it's meant to be watched from the female's gaze, why it is more about Jennifer's relationship with her best friend, Needy, and not about Jennifer just being a hot girl. This movie needs to be rewatched. If you watched this movie when it first came out and you haven't watched it in the recent years, please re-watch it. Megan Fox knocks the acting out of the park. In one of the very first scenes where we see that she has changed in some way, she is showing that she has changed in such a beautiful, not over the top, almost subtle, but so scary way. This movie could have used special effects to make Jennifer look so scary in this specific moment, but just because she's so good at acting and the makeup is so well done, they didn't need to. I claim Jennifer's Body as a good for her film because it is good for her. Good for Megan Fox. She reclaimed her career, not when the movie first came out, not when she was being sexualized by all of society and hated on because of internalized misogyny, but years later, this movie became such a cult classic that she was able to arise from the ashes and do more with her career. Yes, she was in a bunch of stuff like New Girl, but this year she came out with a new movie, which is actually our number 2 good for her film, Till Death. This movie is a good for her film in itself and also for Megan Fox. But this movie was so fun to watch. So fun. It's exhausting. It is an exhausting movie to watch because everything that happens in the film, you're like grasping to breathe. You're like, oh my God, give this person a break. But Megan's performance is wild. Wild. It's so good. It's so good. And as someone who has, trigger warning, survived abusive situations, watching her also play someone who is in an abusive situation, she did it so well. There are so many actors who years ago have played characters like that so over the top, but she is so subtle about it that makes it so genuine and believable. And I could feel everything she was feeling, even when she was hardly showing much at all, because that was intentional. It's a great film. Till Death, for me, was a 10 out of 10. I had so much fun watching it. And Jennifer's Body, because I think I forgot to rank that as well, also a 10 out of 10 for so many reasons, because my gay little heart loves that film. Good for Her film number 3, Ready or Not. Ready or Not came out a few years ago, and I feel like it didn't get a whole lot of hype just because the timing was a little weird. But the people I know who have seen Ready or Not swear by this film, including myself. I think the concept is hilarious and eerie and scary and creepy and cool. I think all of the actors did what they needed to and killed it. I think the main actress has great comedic timing while also just nailing being a final girl. Everything that happens in this movie takes place on the main character's wedding night, and it's a wild ride. I would absolutely rate this movie a 10 out of 10. You guys tell that I like Good for Her films? I can't stop smiling. They're just so fun to talk about. We need more of these. I want the cinema to make me more Good for Her films, please. Good for her, she's doing happy and healthy, not me, because I don't see enough of these movies. Our number 4 Good for Her film, you probably haven't heard of, because even though I've seen it, I almost always forget the title. I had to look it up before recording this because I forgot the title for the millionth time. Number 4, The Furies. It's one of those movies where not all the actors are super believable, but if you just hang on and get past some of the not so great acting, the ride is worth it. The main character wakes up in a box in the middle of the woods, and she doesn't know where she is, and she quickly realizes that she's being hunted by men in masks. But she discovers that there's other women who also were in boxes in the woods and also don't know what's going on. And this is a Good for Her film for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I can't tell you guys without spoiling them, and I want you to see this one. I think this movie needs to get more attention because even though not all the acting is amazing, like I said, the ride is so worth it. I'm gonna rank this one an 8 out of 10. Okay, number 5, Good for Her, is a wild movie. And I still don't know if I like it or not. I mean, it's burned into my brain because it's so interesting and I haven't ever seen a movie like it before. Number 5 is The Perfection. This was also a movie I saw on Netflix. The main actress is the actress who plays the girlfriend in Get Out. She is incredible. I believe every character I've ever seen her play. But The Perfection it gives me Black Swan vibes, where it's very much about this main character just wants to be perfect at playing violin, I believe. She's like a classical musician, and she's jealous of another classical musician that is kind of getting in her way. Kind of like Mila Kunis, Natalie Portman, Black Swan vibes. And definitely worth a watch. I feel like anyone that's ever been in the same kind of industry like Black Swan and being a ballerina in classical music and studied classical music, I think it's definitely worth a watch for you because I do think that they very accurately portray the pressure that is put on you as a musician. And also crazy, wild, intense. 9 out of 10. If you watched my video where I recommended scary video games to play, this next movie, our number 6 for Good for Her, gives me the same vibes as one of my favorite horror video games, Soma. So number 6 for Good for Her is Underwater. Kristen Stewart is everything. Gay panic. Kristen Stewart plays a woman who is working in a underwater submarine station of sorts, and shit starts breaking and everybody starts dying. And the movie is about her trying to escape and get out of this terrifying, so scary underwater situation. If you are claustrophobic, if you're scared of the ocean, if you're scared of being in open water like I am, you're either gonna love this movie because you love being scared, or you're going to loathe this movie because all of the things that haunt your nightmares will come true in this film. This one's fun. I don't think it's necessarily groundbreaking. No pun intended. I don't necessarily... I don't... But I do think it's a great watch. It's definitely one of those ones that you will feel exhausted after, but I think the ending is fun, and I definitely think it's worth a watch. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Are you guys tired? I know this video is so long. Everybody take a breath. Everybody take a moment. Because the last part of this video, we are going to be talking about 6 horror movies that actually scared me. Now, I want to reiterate that horror is subjective. Things that are scary are subjective. So if you've heard of these films and they didn't scare you, congratulations. You're not a scaredy cat like I am. I put these on the list because I really like them. I would like everybody to watch them if they haven't, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to scare you, but it definitely scared me. Number 1, Host. Y'all, this is a movie that came out during the pandemic. This is a movie that takes place during the pandemic. The whole point of this movie is it's a bunch of people that are on a video call, doing a little Google Meetup party, hang out with their friends because they can't meet up in person because of COVID, and shit starts getting sci-fi and scary like Paranormal Activity, and everybody just starts heckin' dying. And this one scared the crap out of me. I think what really makes this movie scary is because when it came out, all of us were doing what they're doing in that movie, and it felt very real, and it felt too close to home. And then it has these moments that kind of burn into your brain forever, like really eerie images. This movie kind of sat with me for a few weeks after I saw it, where I was having a hard time sleeping because I just kept remembering these little images that you could see that kind of just, they didn't sit right with me. They made me feel weird. They made me feel icky. I would rank Host a 7 out of 10 because I think it's situational and I don't think it'll be scary and relatable forever. Scary movie number 2, The Fourth Kind. Y'all, this movie changed my perspective on life. This movie presents itself in a way that makes it feel like all of this has happened and is real because they tell you that at the beginning. The film opens up with Mila Jovovich, I think that's how you say her name, explaining to the audience that all of the things that happen in this film actually happened, and these are dramatized to be put on your screen to be made into a film. All the names are changed, etc., etc. And then they show you real footage of the people that this has happened to. When this came out, people were freaking out because they really thought it was real. And I'm about 90% sure that the filmmakers had to come out and be like, this isn't real. That was just part of the ride. That's just part of how the movie presents itself. So you switch between the actors playing the real people, and there's found camera footage from the original stories that really happened to these people with really disturbing images. And that's what really screwed me up with this movie, is the things that happen in this movie are so sudden. It's not like a jump scare. It's just sudden and disturbing. I think The Fourth Kind might be my favorite found footage films of all time. Even though it's not found footage, it's footage of something that has happened, right? The way they switch between the dramatized stuff and the real stuff is so cinematically beautiful and well done. They do it in a way where the editing is almost unnoticeable, which is what a lot of editors try to do in filmmaking, is you want to make sure your editing is not noticeable, right? I don't know, like it just sat with me, and I rewatched it because part of me was like, there's no way this is as scary as I made it out to be when I watched it the first time. So I rewatched it before filming this video last week, and I had to look at my phone like this while watching the film, just to like ground myself and remind myself that it was just a movie. I don't have to do that often. And I feel like this is a movie that probably isn't going to be scary for you if you don't believe in aliens, if you don't believe in supernatural stuff. But I really do believe in that stuff, and I think that's why it really screws with me. Because it is still so disturbing and scary, I'm gonna have to give this a 9 out of 10. The third movie on my list that actually scared me, Oculus. Y'all, every time I say the name of this movie, I'm like, we're gonna play some VR. Nope. Oculus is a movie with Karen Gillan? Why do I not know how to pronounce any actor and actress's names? Please don't come for me. I'm doing my best. Y'all, I've rewatched this movie 3 or 4 times and it still scares me. I think it's beautiful. The color grading in this film is so pretty. Like, this movie's scary, but it's also so pretty. And all of the scares in this movie are not necessarily jump scares, but they're so subtle and then they just get to you. If you want to know a little bit more about the movie, the main character is haunted by a mirror that haunted her childhood life. She's reunited with this mirror as an adult, and she gets her brother involved, and they try to catch this mirror in the act to prove that basically this mirror is evil. It's a wild ride. There are moments in this film that do kind of give me Stranger Things vibes, where there's almost like an upside down, or Insidious vibes, where, you know, you're in like this dark, creepy half version of the world that you actually live in. And I think this movie does it so well. I think out of all of the films that I've seen do the confusing you on what's real and what's not, I think this movie knocks it out of the park. 10 out of 10. Another movie I want to rewatch like tonight, but I probably won't. This one, actually, I don't know if I could watch Oculus alone. I've never watched Oculus alone, and I think I might be too scared to. I went to a thrift store, found this beautiful mirror that I want to put in my bedroom, but Oculus is part of the reason why I haven't unwrapped it and hung it up on my wall. I'm like scared. I'm like, you can't thrift mirrors, dude. You don't know which ones are haunted, dude. Fuck. Number 4, The Descent. I have actually talked about The Descent on my YouTube channel before in one of my past horror movie videos, but I have to name it again because I can't rewatch this movie. This movie scared the crap out of me. I recently found out that there's a different ending to this film, and I didn't know that. Anyway, The Descent is a bunch of women that go spelunking, and there's something creepy living underneath wherever they're at, and they get caved in with whatever's living underneath with them. And first of all, I'm claustrophobic. I'm scared of the dark. I'm terrified of ever being like caved into something where you just can't get out in a small area. Are you kidding? One thing that I love about this film is it's all women. Like, there's hardly movies like that. And I realize that the way I'm talking about this makes it seem like I don't like men. I'm just really sick of seeing male-dominated films. Like, it's really refreshing to see films that have a lot of women. And this came out in, I believe, the 90s, maybe early 2000s. So it was really refreshing to see that at the time, especially in a movie that is so scary and so iconic. I really would like to experience the other ending because I'd like to see what happens. I actually don't remember how this movie ends because it scared me so bad that I think I blocked it out. But I definitely recommend this movie if you can handle it. I think everybody should watch this movie at least once. 9 out of 10. I think a lot of people would give it a 10 out of 10, but because I don't remember how it ends, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Number 5, The Strangers. The Strangers is one of those movies that is so scary because it feels like it could happen to anyone, yeah? It's just a home invasion, and I'm pretty sure it's based off of real events. This, like, actually happened. I'm, like, 90% sure. Let's double check that. Caesar, am I correct? Sick. When this movie came out, I couldn't watch it. I was too scared when it first came out. And I remember once we were past the point of it being in theaters and it started showing up on the television, I tried watching it because I saw it on TV. I got so scared within like the 5 minutes that I was watching it that I turned the TV off and had to sleep with my lights on. Years later, fast forward to me being an adult, I tried watching it again. And once again, even as an adult, not watching it alone, I got so scared that I had to pause it. I don't know what it is. I think just the fact that it could just happen to me. It could happen to my friends. It could happen to anyone. The way that things just got so scary so quickly and just bad place, wrong time kind of thing. It just fucked with me. Pretty much every person I've talked to that has watched this movie has felt the same, that it's really scary and it's worth a watch. So yeah, and it's Liv Tyler. Come on. Everybody should watch Liv Tyler in movies because she's Liv Tyler. You know, Lord of the Rings fans, where you at? Let me know. I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10. Ooh, okay. I wanted to leave you guys off with a movie that maybe you guys haven't heard of because I had never heard of it and I stumbled upon it. I can't remember if it was on Netflix or Shudder, but I stumbled upon it, watched it, and to this day, the ending rattles me. You guys know the redheaded actress from Game of Thrones who says, you know the line, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." You know her. Ygritte. That's the character's name. I cannot remember the actress's name right now. She is in a movie called Honeymoon. which is just as you expect it. She is on a honeymoon with her new husband, and they go to a cabin in the woods, little cliche, and some things happen. And it's very fourth kind vibes where if you are a believer of supernatural and aliens, this is probably going to fuck you up. The imagery in this movie is disturbing. No movie to this day has ever made my heart fall into my stomach and left that image burned into my head like this movie has. Like, I watched this movie when I was 19 and I had to put it on this list because I've never been able to forget that moment. And I rewatched it before filming this because I wanted to see if it was still as icky as I remember. It is still as icky as I remember, y'all. Anyways, that was 6 fun movies, 6 good for her movies, and 6 movies that actually scared me. But before I fully go, before I end this video and leave you guys to go watch whatever you feel like, maybe you guys decide to watch these movies. Maybe you decide to move on because you're too scared to watch these movies. That's fine and valid. It's whatever. I understand. I left an honorable mention because I feel that this movie is fun, scary, and a lot of people believe it's a good for her film. And I'm going to explain to you why it's not. Any guesses? Midsummer. Midsummer came out a few years ago. I'm pretty sure all of you guys know what it is. If you haven't, you should look up this film. This movie is disturbing. It's fucked up. It's gross. I had to put Midsummer in this video because after rewatching it a few times and thinking about this movie more, I think it's a perfect film. I know that's subjective, but here's why. Ari Aster, the director of this film, created this film so well that he has manipulated audiences into believing that it's a good for her film. And that's what he wants. Ari Aster wants you to believe this is a good for her film because he wants the main character, Danny, to believe that this moment is good for her. The whole movie is about manipulation and grooming because it's about a cult. And he turns the whole audience into a cult. The watcher of this film is supposed to let down their defenses and kind of fall for the beauty and the sunlight that is this film. And at the end, when you see Danny smiling, you smile with. And that's the point. That's why you're supposed to believe it's a good for her film. They've manipulated you into believing it's good for her, just like she feels like it's good for her. I love that kind of filmmaking. It is not the scariest film in the world. It's absolutely disturbing and gross, and there's some very triggering imagery. There is some crazy cool imagery in it. There's a wonderful video that I watched recently. It's about 30 minutes long, explaining why this movie is basically perfect in my eyes. I'm going to link it in the description below because I think you guys should watch that as well if you are interested. Anyway, I love making this kind of content for you guys. It gives me so much joy talking about horror films and scary things. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please like the video. Leave a comment. Tell me other horror movies I need to watch because I will watch them. And I will see you guys on the YouTubes. Later, skaters. Let's watch some scary movies together, friends.